When you plant Wyffels Hybrids, you're making a statement that independence and family-owned means something on your farm. So make your choice. Plant your independence. Plant Wyffels.
Welcome back, everyone, to a new episode of InCYde Zone presented by Wyffels Hybrids. I'm Jacqueline Cordova, and as always, joined by Colin Newell, Jake Remsburg, and Jirehl Brock. Iowa State took care of business in the Farmageddon, 29-21. Guys, 10
How
wins.
about them? How about them clones?
How we feeling?
I mean, you can ask for a much better day.
Anything. You can't feel bad at all. At all.
That's a big deal. 10 wins is a big deal.
Yeah.
And
Big 12 championship berth.
I know that's just like the cherry on top. Like, unbelievable. Like that BYU game, they scared me for a little bit there, but luckily they pulled away with that one. So yeah, I mean,
I definitely didn't like the fact that we had to wait for that game to be over to find out if we were moving.
I know that was so stressful.
I feel like the college football just like landscape this year is just with this 12-team playoff, every game means so much more. Like I was staying up watching the Georgia Tech game. You stay up late, you watch a BYU game to go 10-2 and hope that you get the Big 12 championship, right? There's just so many games that mean so much more. So it's kind of cool to see the competitiveness of it come through as we go. But man, it was wild. Winning, going 10-2, setting a school record, still not knowing if you're in is wild.
Yeah,
this is a wild rivalry week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of stuff that went on in college football yesterday was just insane.
It's so crazy.
Yeah,
so
where do we
crazy. You
start?
can tell it's getting to the end because people are just starting. When you're in fall camp and like everybody starts to get tired, so they just start fighting.
Just for
Like
fighting.
that's the season. That's the season. It's getting to an end. Everybody's just starting to get tired of all the everyday life of being a football player and just starting to fight. And so in rivalry week, just adds a cherry on top to that. But I'm glad to get the job done for sure.
Yeah, they brought out pepper spray in the Michigan Ohio State game. What? That's unheard of.
Some for fighting somehow.
I guess you probably had to.
And then you saw fights again today in the NFL.
I know.
It's getting late in the season.
That's what happens. I feel like I've never seen anything like that though. Yesterday, like that was insane.
At all. I don't ever.
Like just everything across the whole sport, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, like the planting of the flags and stuff. Like personally, if someone else planted a flag, and we just lost at home, right? I would kind of just take it on the chin and just go back to the locker room. But I guess some people take real offense to that. So I don't know.
Well, I think it was the Arizona State game, right?
Like Ohio State tight end.
Oh yeah, he lost himself.
Yeah, he literally was like going ballistic. He's like,
yeah,
they beat him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thankfully, nothing like that happened in the Iowa State-Kansas State game, except it was chirpy. It was definitely chirpy down there.
It was.
Oh, yeah. And you guys know as players, like you feel that intensity on a game when it's something like when it has a name like Farmageddon, you can feel just the intensity with it. A game like the Cyhawk, Farmageddon, games like that, they always bring a little bit more you bring a little bit more energy and a little bit more of a chip on your shoulder when it comes to those games.
Yeah, I mean, even
I feel like the weather.
I feel
like the weather plays a factor in that too. Like it's cold, and all of a sudden, before you know it, you're just a little more on edge than normal.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I got in there and I see those Kansas State jerseys for the first time, even as a fan, I just wanted to run through a brick wall. Like I was fired up. I mean, that rivalry is a fun one, but I mean, we've won the last two, I believe. Mm-hmm. 3?
I think it's 2.
2. Yeah, we lost in 2022, I believe.
4 out of 5 for those keeping track.
There you go, Aiden. Not a boy.
And yes, we are keeping track.
We do keep track of that. That's cool.
So, I mean, yeah, 10 wins. Talk about it. Tell me how that feels, guys. It's not only 10 wins for Iowa State as a program, and it's like, gosh, 133-year history, but it's also Coach Campbell's first 10 win in his career. So, I mean, talk about what that means to you guys to see that happen.
Oh, it's special. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really special. Yesterday was just a special day all around. Senior night's always fun, and it's cool to see. So, but I mean, I felt so much pride and happiness for those guys out there because it takes a lot of work, a lot of time. It starts in spring practice and all those days you didn't want to get out of bed. And it's worth it when you can go out there and have a successful fall season because we've been on the other side. 2022 wasn't a great year. I think we went 4-8, and that's hard when you put in so much work and you don't get the results. But I mean, having a 10-win season, that's a milestone that you can talk about forever. Coach Campbell deserves it, every single bit of it. I was lucky enough to, sneak in the locker room a little bit last night after the win. And it was just awesome to see how fired up those guys were, how fired up the coaches were. So it's really special for, everyone involved in all the early mornings, late nights that people, put in a lot of time in and see results like that is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think this win is huge, obviously, for the program, too. Everything that you said there, Remy, I 100% believe that what they do in the offseason is certainly what dictates that. I think one area that this is going to help us even more is recruiting. When you can say, hey, you're going to go out there and you're going to win 10 games every year, that certainly is something that you can hang your hat on, something that you can talk about. You can say, hey, we've been to the Big 12 championship 2 times under Coach Campbell. We've done these type of things, and hey, look what we're actually building to. So huge compliments to all those guys. It's so cool to see those seniors on senior night go out there and win their 10th game. And just a special group that they are. They're all playing so well. All the seniors are playing well. When seniors are playing good football, you're going to have a good football season. So I think it's so much credit to them for what they've done, what they've been able to lay the foundation of. And the sky's the limit with this new playoff.
Winning is hard in college football, and to go out there and win 10 of the 12 opportunities that you start the year with. Coach Campbell always says you have 12 opportunities, 12 guaranteed opportunities, because you play to get a 13th opportunity and possibly a 14th and a 15th, and they've played well enough to give themselves a 13th opportunity coming up this weekend. And I mean, when you can do that as a team, as a player, you can definitely feel a sense of joy and a sense of accomplishment, knowing that you got to that 13th game. And we have never felt how a 10-win season is, but we know that playing a whole season isn't, it's nothing to take for granted. They played the whole season. It's a long season. And winning 10 games is, a huge accomplishment, and they should, be as happy as I know they are, but also know that the job's not done because they gave themselves a bigger task to go get.
No, absolutely. I think it's pretty cool. We're just reflecting on where this program has come, the past, the Coach Campbell era, all the ups and downs, the goods, the bads, and stuff like that. To see it finally come to a place where you're like, okay, you think back to his old sayings, like trust the process, like the TCU game in whatever 2017 it was, I think. If you eventually if you trust the process, eventually the process will love you back, or something, whatever he said. Well, it's loving us back right now. Like you can say that the process loves us right now.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we love the process because 10-2 and headed to the Big 12 championship. Like it's just really cool. And yeah, I mean, I'm almost speechless. Like, this is insane. Like, I mean, not only that, but they give me an excuse to miss a couple days of work this week. Like, that's awesome.
I think going into the game, we were like one of 3 teams in like either all of Division I or something like that hadn't had a 10-win season. and we can finally cross that box that a bunch of fan bases give us crap about all the time.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
What's
Can you
crazy
guys
is this team has battled injuries so much this year too. I mean, it's
That's
been
the wild
unbelievable.
thing.
Like to say that we won 10 games and have, I mean, Malik Verdon was out last night. Caleb, you just go down the list. You didn't have guys like Daniel Jackson
Insane.
even play this season. So
Yeah.
when you put that in perspective and show the depth that Iowa State has moving forward, certainly a lot to look forward to, and just kind of see them, like, Jack Sadowski, Will McLaughlin, all those guys start to lay into that foundation of that role. Now that they're 3, 4, 5 games in on defense, it's really starting to be a special thing that they're being able to do.
It's a great point. Like, you thought we would talk about earlier this season on this podcast about injuries and how it might be our biggest opponent. And we beat it, I think. Like, we're crushing injuries in the win and loss column because, as much as you hated not having guys like Caleb Bacon and stuff like that out there. The guys just stepping up, and oh man, it's awesome.
I feel like Coach Campbell's really bad about talking about himself, and he always obviously turns it around to the players. But I feel like this moment is definitely a moment of reflection to his impact to Iowa State. And you guys obviously know him better than anyone. You played under him. So I would love to hear from you guys. I mean, what the impact that he's had. I mean, the culture he's built, which is always such a cliche because, like you said, all of his coach mannerisms we've talked about for so many years now. But I would love to just hear what you guys have to say about Coach Campbell and, I mean, what these 10 wins really mean about his legacy.
I think it's going to be a big, and I think everything's kind of led up to this point of this happening. There's been some good seasons, some really good seasons. There's been some bad seasons, but mostly ever since Coach Campbell's got here, it's just been progression. And, this kind of, I'm not going to say this caps it because I mean, I feel like Coach Campbell will be able to do this with multiple different groups and just continue to get better and in the eyes of the public and obviously in the eyes of all the Iowa State fans. But I feel like this is going to be a big stamp of putting him, as one of the, not just one of the best coaches in, Iowa State history, but in college history, because like Colin was just talking about, the amount of injuries and different obstacles that this team had to go through this year, and still being able to, get 10 wins, make it to the Big 12 championship, and obviously give yourself a chance to go into the college football playoff in its first year and be the team that possibly represents the Big 12 in its first year in the college football playoff. That's a huge thing, and nobody should take that for granted.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of a unique situation. Like, some schools get a recruit to history, and then like Coach Campbell gets to say, "Hey, you are going to be a part of history." Where, hey, Nebraska, you can go and you can come play at Nebraska. We'll have all sorts of NIL money. We'll be able to do all these cool things. You'll have a lot of history. You'll be able to look at some national championship trophies from the past. But are you actually able to go out and win one will be a completely different thing. So when you put Iowa State in the consideration of, hey, you can go win a Big 12 championship every year and have an opportunity to go win a national championship, go to CFP, all that stuff. I think it's a unique recruiting tool that he has and saying, hey, we can win consistently here, proving it in a place that it's really hard to win. So it's kind of a cool situation to say that, he's creating history every single day, every single year, and especially this year that he's been here in Ames, created a great legacy.
Yeah, I think the topic of recruiting is interesting when we talk about, a 10-win season. I think first and foremost, if you would ask Campbell, 10 wins is great, but, he's got next Saturday circled on his calendar as, something that he still wants to accomplish. But yeah, I mean, in terms of recruiting, when we were getting recruited, Campbell and his staff had to try to sell us a vision because there's really nothing to prove that you could win and consistently win at a high level at Iowa State. But now he has that now. So he's built that, and you can win in Ames, Iowa in the college football era where it's kind of crazy. Like we were talking about earlier, the college football landscape, wild. But he can prove that he can develop guys and change people's lives and win football games in Ames, Iowa. And he doesn't have to sell it as a vision anymore. It's in the facts, which is really cool. It's a really cool recruiting tool. So I'll be interested to see how that kind of comes to effect. But I mean, when we were getting recruited, I mean, you could tell you could buy into a vision. Like you could see through the people and where the Iowa State was going that it was going to eventually, come to, to play, and it sure did. So, yeah, it's just a really cool topic to talk about because it's so different than when all of us got recruited.
Especially in this new, era of the Big 12. Really, it's after Texas and Oklahoma left, it's kind of up for grabs who wants the top spot in the Big 12 and,
Right.
being that team that gets the first Big 12 championship after the whole rearranging and everything of the teams and everything like that. It's like a big statement to recruits knowing that, saying like Iowa State is, the top dog in this conference. So
I'm a little salty about the amount of, I wouldn't say crap, but just kind of neglect towards the Big 12 conference
dude,
in college football. Like, oh my God, like
I think it's so stupid.
At the end of the day, hard conference to win football games in. Look at Oklahoma State this year. Oklahoma State has every tool in the book to, go out and recruit whoever they want, and they win like all the time. I think that's kind of where the perception of the Big 12 is this year. It's like, okay, well, your best teams aren't very good. You're the Oklahoma States of the world aren't good. You have Arizona State and Iowa State in the Big 12 championship. Like, so that's why I kind of think like, the perception of the Big 12 football is kind of, differed a little bit this year, but man, there's some good teams. Kansas State last night was a good football team. They had good players all across the board. Even from their O-line to their D-line to their, their skill positions, their quarterback's a good player. Yeah, it's a good team. And how many games did they drop this year in the conference? I think 4. I think they went 5-4 in the conference, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. And I think the Big 12 deserves some more credit. And that's the end of my soapbox speech.
No, I agree with you 100%. I feel like, I feel like conferences get the benefit of the doubt when it comes to their record just because of their conference, when I don't think that's how it should be. I feel like the Big 12 is pretty even in competition, and that's why it kind of looks like that to everyone else. SEC is very top heavy. Big Ten's very top heavy. ACC is not very good. But everybody's going to look at the SEC and be like, oh, just because Georgia, Alabama's teams like that. Like if I don't know if Alabama gets into the college football playoff, I would have to.
I think they got a shot now. I think there's a shot.
That's the recency bias.
Exactly.
That's because they won national championship. Kind of like what I talked about in the recruiting thing. Like, hey, Campbell's creating this thing. So if he keeps it going like this, where you're winning 8 to 12 games a year, I mean, you kind of get to hang your hat on that 10 to 12 games a year. All of a sudden, you're going to start to say, hey, the Big 12 is a little bit better. They got teams that have come in and won CFP games, upset a couple people, and change that history to say, hey, maybe, with this new world and this new CFP, we actually get the opportunity to see some teams and say, hey, they did earn their shot here because of what they've been able to do in previous years.
Right.
I was trying to find it, but I think it was the Texas Tech coach that
I was just about to bring that up too. Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't listen to the whole statement, so if you know the whole thing, know more details of it. But the one thing he said was he just straight up called out the committee and said it's embarrassing what they're doing to the Big 12 conference.
It is. It's. Boise State probably has a great football team. This year they have a great running back, but it would be interesting to throw them in the Big 12 mix for a whole season and kind of see if we'd still be sitting here talking about them in the same way. But
kind of like how I was saying, like there's just the bias towards these like SEC teams and stuff like that. It's kind of ridiculous because and what the Texas Tech coach was saying is, Texas leaves the Big 12, goes to the SEC, and they're at the top of the SEC. You know what I mean? Oregon leaves the Pac-12, goes to the Big Ten, and they're at the top of the Big Ten. So like they're looking at these conferences like there's such a big gap in skill, and you know what I mean? Just not giving the benefit of the doubt to the other schools that, are out here getting it out of the mud.
Yeah, obviously any team can, beat anyone like we've talked about this year. So, I mean, look at Vanderbilt this year. How crazy their season been.
Yeah, I feel like that's more prevalent this year than even in the past. Like the whole landscape that we're in right now this year is just absolutely wild with how truly, upsets are happening every weekend. Miami lost yesterday. Georgia really probably should have lost.
Should have.
There's just so many things where it's like
Tennessee should.
You don't know what you're going to see. Yeah.
Football is really an any given day sport, and any given day anything can happen. So,
gosh, I love football. I love it.
I really don't. I don't agree with. I feel like it should. You play your schedule. Obviously, I do think strength of schedule matters in some cases, but once you start losing a lot of those strong games, then it really shouldn't matter. You know what I mean?
So when looking at Iowa State's game, 29-21 was the final score. I was watching some of the Kansas State post-game stuff just because I was curious what Coach had said. And I just pulled one of his quotes just because it was him talking about playing against Iowa State. But he said, you can't play a team like that and make mistakes that we made. We made mistakes in the first half that led to points, and you can't do that against good football teams. And I only pulled that because I feel like we find ourselves having similar conversations about Iowa State. So it was one of those where it was like nice to see the tables turn.
Exactly.
So
yeah, I think we said that last week too. Is just they're kind of a team built kind of like we are. Just don't shoot yourself in the foot, and make the other team make mistakes. And I think we said it right before we closed out last week, is that we have to go out in there and make them make mistakes and don't make mistakes ourselves. And that's exactly what we did. Coach Campbell loves to win the turnover battle, and that's a big part. I mean, if you go and look at any football game, I feel like the turnover battle will kind of show you who wins and loses. There's obviously outliers, but just like last night, the turnover battle, I have 2 turnovers for Kansas State, 0 for Iowa State. So you win that, yeah, that's the game right there.
One thing that was interesting to me, I feel like as an Iowa State fan, I feel like we've been on the other side of that loss more times 100%. Than one, where it's like, hey, yeah, you maybe outgain them on offense, but before you know it, you're in a ball game kind of, and a couple plays don't go your way. You lose a couple special teams battles, and before you know it, it's a really tough game. So I think yesterday kind of being able to flip that on somebody was really enjoyable experience for me because K-State is a very, very worthy opponent. We've all watched over our lifetimes as Cyclone fans us lose situations because of special teams to Kansas State. And what do we know? We go out and block a kick by DP and turn them over a couple times and score off of those turnovers. So it was really, to me, kind of a complete game. It was weird, even looking at the statistics, like they're down. Both teams weren't very good. But when you look at time of possession, Iowa State had 10 more minutes of time of possession in that game, which felt really interesting to me because I felt like it was our defense was phenomenal yesterday, right? Kind of making a lot of it seemed like they were out there a lot. So it was just cool to see, Iowa State be able to kind of grind them out, and in the second half, the offense really was able to open up.
Yeah, before the game, I was telling some people it was just going to be 4 quarters of smash mouth football, Midwestern style, cold, and we won. We won in the margins. We capitalized off turnovers, which is a big point because turnovers are great, but what are you going to do with that? Like, are you going to be able to go out and use them effectively and get some points on the board? And I think we've all seen times where you get a turnover and then you don't do really anything of it, and it's like, okay, that turnover can essentially be erased from the score box because it didn't even mean anything. It was just like a punt. But no, capitalizing on those things, that's how you win games against good football teams. And Kansas State obviously has a good football team. And for us to, win in the margins, going back to Campbell's legacy, that's his legacy as a coach. That's what he wants his players to, do is win in the margins. And for us to win the 10th win of our season and do it that way, there's no other way he'd rather have it. So.
One thing real quick, too, is I just remember Coach Campbell saying, make the ball bounce your way. I remember it was like our first seasons where we kind of started to get some success and stuff. And, you go out there and you play in Oklahoma or Texas and, it's what we call maybe a lucky bounce, right? But kind of saying like, hey, that doesn't just happen. That's with your preparation, how you play, things like that. And yesterday, it kind of felt like Iowa State, was in the right positions at the right times, and they kind of made the ball bounce their way. And certainly feel like that was something that was a huge impact there where, hey, you can go out there and play confidently because the ball's kind of bouncing your way.
I heard some murmurs in the stands about that first turnover. Some people thought it was a forward pass. I went back and watched it today. I'm pretty sure it was still, behind him.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Dude, on the broadcast, like, I don't know. There was this guy. I feel like every time I watch a broadcast, there's like one guy that just doesn't want Iowa State to win at all. He just doesn't want them to win. And he was like, I don't know how you can call that a backwards toss. And then the other guy was up there. Was like, I don't see enough to turn it.
Right.
And I'm like, I think it was pretty like side to side. So I feel like whatever they called, that's what you keep. And they called it a lateral pass, so that's what you keep it.
All right, we'll take it. No complaints from our end.
Points.
Whenever you could start the game like that. Oh, yeah,
that was sweet.
That got the fans involved immediately too.
Immediately, it gets the fans right on the back. They're not feeling their toes as much anymore. That they can't even feel in your hands.
Offense has a short field.
You get some adrenaline through your blood because I was cool. I'm not gonna lie out there. I was pretty cool in the stands, and when something like that happens, you get on your feet, you get moving around a little bit, you jump and stuff. It's way better.
I know everyone was really concerned. Not everyone. I shouldn't say everyone. There were some people that were very concerned about the turnout, and there was 56,228 people in attendance.
Hats off to, I was impressed when I, went in there last night, and the amount of people, like, hats off to Cyclone Nation. Obviously, there's a bunch of people saying that we weren't going to be able to do it. We weren't going to have a good showing, but we did, and it was really cool to see. So if you braved it out yesterday, hats off to you. I hope you're enjoying the warmth as you're listening to this right now. Hopefully you're not outside anymore.
So when looking at this game, at least from my perspective, there was never a time where I was like panicked or where I felt myself go, oh my God, they're going to lose this game. Like I never felt that way. And some people have said they felt the same. So for you guys, having watched it, like you said, Newell, I felt like when it came to the details, they were really good at capitalizing and never having a misstep. And if they did, they were still able to clean it up pretty quickly, and it didn't really end up making a huge difference. What do you guys think helped Iowa State just be so on it yesterday? I mean, they were leading at the half. That's something I find myself really nervous about going into halftime. Are they going to be able to score to extend their lead, or are they going to be able to take the lead? And in this case, like I said, I think it was like 24-14 when they headed into the locker room.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was ever nervous. Now, did I get on my edge of my seat a little bit and go like, oh boy, here we go? Yeah, a little bit. But I was pretty confident. I don't know. I thought we were playing good football. I mean, it wasn't always pretty. I don't think I don't think everyone played an A+ game by any means. Right. But I just kind of felt confident. I thought we were playing really good defense, which helps out a lot. I thought, Kansas State obviously had a couple big pass plays there. They had a couple big runs in the third quarter. But when you just kind of trusted them a little bit. And then obviously I thought Haycock, again, another masterclass performance. It's hard when you have a quarterback like Avery Johnson who can run really effectively. We saw that with like Kansas, just a couple of weeks back. I'm surprised they didn't do more of that type of read runs a little bit. But yeah, I think it came down to the defense, and then obviously our special teams play was pretty awesome. So yeah, I think that's kind of what made me not nervous, but just a little uptight, I'd say.
I feel like games like that yesterday are just such unique games. Like until you've played out there in a cold game like that, I mean, you don't understand like what it truly feels like to be able to like feel like your brain's moving in full motion, but your body is just like not processing or moving quite as quick as it normally does. So in situations like that, there's just going to be a few more opportunities. And I mean, you look at both quarterbacks' completion percentage. It wasn't that they were just throwing the ball way over the place. There was a lot of drops. Just a tick behind or people not being able to get out of breaks and maybe throwing ahead of them a little bit because they're used to running full speed, things like that. So there was just so many things like that yesterday that kind of go into a game like that where it's, 10, 15 degrees outside that you don't necessarily think about, but they actually do have a pretty significant impact in the way people are able to execute. So I thought Iowa State went out there. Obviously, it's had to be physical in a game like that because there's not a ton of explosive plays just with the fact that it is a little bit colder. And I think Bowser did a really great job in the second half of getting into formations that would give us opportunities to run to the boundary like 2 or 3 times with Carson Hansen and Abu, where it's like 10, 15 yards untouched. And it's like, okay, that's clearly a scouted look where we're just saying like, hey, it doesn't matter what you guys are going to get into because you guys are having to adjust to, we got Jaden and Jalen both on the same side of the ball, and you're having to bring people over, and before you know it, you got Abu or Carson running out the backside for 10 or 15 yards. And those are just good chunk plays to say, hey, we know we can keep running that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I was ever like nervous. I always feel like if we're up at halftime, then there's not a chance that we can lose just because of how our defense plays in the second half and Coach Haycock's adjustments, and then also how our O-line and running backs can just continue to move the chains and get the clock ticking. But kind of jumping on what you were talking about, Newell, of talking about how in the weather that it was, you don't see very many big plays. I was just kind of scared just because of how many big plays that they were getting. Like, and they had 2 kind of decently long touchdowns to their number 1 receiver, and in games like that, like you really want them to try and drive the ball down the field because it's taxing, it's cold. Like as players, we know like that. It's never, you want to score as fast as possible in cold games so you can get over there to the sideline. Like, and we were kind of letting that like happen for them. But like you said, we buckled down and Rocco didn't have the best game, like we kind of said, but he made the plays that needed to be made. Love seeing him use his legs. I think we've talked about that past couple of weeks. That's huge, especially on third downs so we don't, have to punt or kick field goals as much if, they're dropping back and he can just use his legs to go pick up the first down like he was doing. I mean, that's going to be a huge thing that this team will be able to use to, win games as we go on this run at the end of the year. But I mean, I thought everybody played well. I thought it was a really greatly coached game. Just handling the situation that, as players, it's really hard to play in a game like that. So coaches know that. And I feel like they kind of tether the game knowing that, it's tough playing out there. So let's make sure we put our players in the best position to be successful the whole night, just with how cold it is, catching the ball, running the ball. The grass kind of this year hasn't been the best for us, just slipping around and stuff out there. So I feel like play calling and everything goes into that as well.
If we want to talk about cold
like
football games
yesterday.
What did you say, Noel?
I do feel like the turf held up pretty well yesterday, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when it's frozen.
I think it works well for us. When other teams come, obviously they complain about it just because they bring turf cleats instead of bringing their spikes. But it works well for us.
I didn't really always wear the metal cleats and Jack Trice. I always did, I think, pretty fine with the molded ones. There's a couple different types that aren't just the metal ones. There's like you have your turf ones that don't really have spikes to them, but there's also like molded spike ones, which I liked using a lot. I thought they worked kind of the same as the metal ones, but yeah, I mean, if we want to talk cold football games, not gonna lie, it's awful. It is not fun. As fun as it may sound, like pregame, like, oh, it's cold, it's going to be great.
Let's go out there, no shirt.
No shirts, yes. I remember Texas Tech 2022. I was like, oh, I'm going to go out there with just shirts and a short. I'll be fine for pregame and stuff. I got out there. I'm like, this is awful. I got to go back to the locker room. Like, I can't out tough this one. And then,
it's a mind thing.
I mean, that's when I had a bad knee too that year. So I was putting icy hot on my knee to keep it warm. But then I was just giving myself like 3rd-degree burns from the icy hot. I don't know. And you go out there for your first hit of the day, and you're like, oh, let's go smash these guys around for 4 quarters. In the first hit, you're like, oh my gosh, that hurt really bad. And then the slightest of helmet to your arms or anything, I mean, you're like, oh, ouch, that one's gonna hurt. So it's not very fun at all. But it looks fun. Like the snow game, you think he's playing in the snow. My least favorite part your whole life, and then you play in the snow, and like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm in sand right now.
Oh no.
My least favorite part of the cold game is putting that helmet on. You put it on coming off the heater.
It's the worst.
Fine, it feels good. But you come off and it's like down on the heater for a little bit.
Oh yeah, it's stiff.
That's brutal.
Your ear, it rubs right past your ear because there's no wiggle movement at all in there. Coming off the heater, that thing slides straight on. It feels comfortable.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I can still feel that that feeling of putting on a cold helmet. It's the worst feeling in the world. It's awful.
I'm so glad you guys brought that up, because I was going to ask, like, how much does it really truly impact, and what does it feel like? Because I know Darian Porter talked about how with it being so cold, they wanted to make sure they had good ball control. And then I don't know where I read or heard this, where someone said it's really all about just making sure you have control of your feet on the field or something. So I was curious, ultimately, what is the true answer to playing in the cold?
Yeah, I mean, for linemen, there's not much. I mean, it's kind of the same. You don't have to touch the ball at all. But I don't know how it feels throwing or catching. I'm sure it can't be great from throwing and catching the ball around. But yeah, the first hit is never fun.
Well,
oh yeah, I mean, whenever catching a ball, like, your hands are obviously already like cold, and it feels like kind of glass when you're catching them. So it's kind of, I don't know. You just have to be soft hands, like are best when it's cold, just because the ball gets hard when it's really cold too. So that makes it tough to catch and also to like carry, because the texture of the ball gets different too. So I don't know. Everything kind of just changes when the elements change.
I remember we played that Texas Tech game 2 years ago. We practiced out in the cold because, to get used to it and stuff. But, as a lineman, it was cold every day during the week. It was still cold on Saturday. There's no preparing for it you could do for it. So it's just kind of, you just got to do it.
There's no getting used to it.
No.
Well, before we get into some more of the game, let's give a shout out to our sponsors. Wyffels Hybrids, our presenting sponsor. Whether it's supporting the Cyclones or helping farmers grow stronger crops, Wyffels Hybrids knows the value of teamwork. They are an independent family-owned seed company, and they've been dedicated to the success of corn growers for over 75 years. If you want to learn more, you can visit their website, which is wyffels.com for Wyffels Hybrids. And we are also sponsored by Iowa State University Ivy College of Business. They have Iowa's largest undergraduate business college, which they offer endless opportunities, whether I mean, you name it, any area of business, it's the best place you can go to get an education, and they will help you build towards an impactful career. So check them out if you're interested in a future in business. And the Cyclone Fanatic shop is having a huge sale right now. Tons of stuff are like,
let's go.
It's like ranging 15 to 30% off, including the like 15 new items we added. You name it. It's from all the sports, wrestling, basketball, football. There's a bunch of new vintage stuff. There's also some new sweatshirts that kind of resembles the jacket that Campbell had on yesterday. He had on a really nice bomber yesterday.
Yeah, that was sweet. I don't know when they're Nike's gonna release that, but I think I'll have to get a hold of mine. But I guess if we have it in the Cyclone Fanatic shop,
yeah, we have it in a hoodie. We have it in Iowa State colors. I know everyone's been a little sensitive about that, so you can get it in cardinal and gold or black and white. But go check all that stuff out. It's available now. Get it in there before December 6th when all the sales end. So fun stuff. But
speaking of that, how about Campbell's reaction to DP's block punt yesterday? My gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
I rewatched it like 6 times.
he like kind of waited a little bit. I don't know if he knew who blocked it, and he saw DP running. I think he just went crazy. It was awesome.
I love when he loses it.
Yeah.
He's literally built for that, like long and fast.
Dude, I rewatched that block, dude. It was money, dude. His bend right outside of the, the block point, just to get this hand up there, man, that was cool.
If you're a special teams coordinator, don't you think like, hey, I don't care when it is, but we got to know where 10 is if there's a special team going on, because he's wreaked too much havoc over too many teams in the Big 12 with the plays he's able to make.
Oh, absolutely. You have to sit there and be like, where is number 10? And you have to maybe adjust your coverage or your blocking unit. So DP, that guy's so proud of him. I saw him after the game yesterday. We shared a nice big hug, and it was super cool. I mean, he's being Jai's age, so we've been through the ringer.
And I love that he got it on his senior night, right? Like we've talked about all the things that made yesterday or Saturday so special. It's Farmageddon, it's the 10th win, it's senior night. And it was really cool when I saw that it was him that got it. I think it's like now his fifth, right? Fifth of
his career, his fifth block kick. Every time I think of when DP blocks a kick, I think of the LeBron James when he chased down Andre Iguodala. Blocked by DP.
That's what happens when you put in the work and you come to the facility every day and you just kind of grind it out. You start as a special teams guy. If any kids listen to this and like you're kind of not happy where you're at in your athletic performance or teams or whatever like that, just keep working, because that guy, he did special teams for 4 years, and now I've seen him as a high level draft pick this year as a cornerback. So like, you never know. Just put your head down and keep working.
Facts.
Other people that had a great game, Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins became the first Iowa State pair to each surpass 1,000 receiving yards in a single season. And they're the first Big 12 duo to do so since Oklahoma's CeeDee Lamb and Hollywood Brown in 2018.
Wow.
That's elite company.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. It is. My goodness. It's so much fun.
Dogs.
Dogs.
Two dogs that absolutely deserve it, dude. They put in all the work all the time, so not even surprised.
Mm-mm.
In the post
One
game,
shout out I want to give.
Oh, go ahead, Colin.
One shout out I want to give is Carson Hansen. Obviously, we know what he's been able to do with the ball in his hands. Yesterday, there were several times when K-State was bringing pressure that he stepped up and threw some huge blocks to allow Rocker to get the ball off. That if you go back and watch that game like 3 or 4 times at least, and I was like sitting in the stands and I'm like, oh, that's a free runner. And like he completely stoned him at the line and was able to make those plays where Rocco was able to sit in the pocket and kind of deliver in the second half there.
He had a great lead block on the run too as well. Rocco's touchdown run.
Yeah.
It was a great block from him there. Yeah, it's the dirty work. You gotta do it, and you gotta find someone that's really good at doing it. Jirehl was really good at doing that stuff, so it's pretty cool. I have we talked about your hit on this podcast yet, Jirehl?
What? No.
Your hit that went viral. Oh my gosh, I should have had it pulled it up, man. Remember that hit, bro? You're a lead blocker for Real.
I'm saying,
No,
describe it to us.
I think it was for Landon. It was actually for Landon.
Oh, really?
We're talking about freshman year.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it was
You
like
killed
on a
that
jet.
guy.
It was like on a jet sweep
Goodness gracious.
against ULM. I know which one you're talking about.
That was sweet.
Yeah. That's really those are the things everyone sees. Jaden and Jalen, their big plays, touchdowns. Speaking of Jaden's catch, and he put his foot in the ground and went the other way. That was sick. Abu's spin move, that was sick. So everyone sees those kind of things, but that's a good point that you bring up there, Noah. We have a lot of guys, which I think is why we make our teams, playing really good football. Is a lot of the stuff you don't see, we're really good at, like the blocking and just the things that aren't on the stat sheet.
Well, and what about the defense? They had a really good game. Some of the things I wrote down was they held Kansas State to 144 rushing yards, I believe it was, which is below their season average. And they limited DJ, is it Giddens? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Their leading rusher to 72 yards. I mean, and watching Dom Orange, that was he is a monster.
Dom's, yeah.
Aiden, pull up
He's a
that
freak.
pic.
He's a freak.
I made myself be way more intentional with the defense yesterday because I'm always really bad at being on the side of the field with them, and I happened to be right there when they just rocked Avery. And I thought of you guys because I was like, "Oh my gosh, his guys are rushing over to him." I can't even imagine if this was like Iowa State situation. Just when you guys talked about the importance of protecting the quarterback, but
I wouldn't suggest doing. I wouldn't suggest. All right, the beginning part of the tackle is great. I wouldn't suggest the second part of it at the in this week's game. I think you might get 15 for that one, but they didn't call it, so we're not gonna say it is or what.
That's a bad feeling for those two offensive linemen. Your quarterback's face down on the ground, and you're like, "Hey, sorry, bro. I got beat on that one."
You guys had a double team, bro.
I got you.
You don't want
on that one.
Reaching your hand down and saying, "Hey, I'll help you up here."
It's not a good feeling when an offensive lineman has to do that. But you gotta. It happens sometimes, unfortunately. As much as Noel, and I think Jirehl, we love the offensive lineman, but
man. I'd go.
We're not perfect at the same time too.
I'd go in there in meetings with the old line.
Oh yeah, you were. Those are fun days.
Well, when looking at the defense, what were your guys' biggest takeaways? How do you feel about how they helped bring that win in?
Yeah, I thought we just played really good team defense. I thought we had a couple great twists, stunts. The defensive line I thought played very well. I was watching a couple of those stunts when I was watching the game over here today. And I kind of sit there sometimes and say, what would I have done in this situation if I was a Kansas State offensive lineman? And you're kind of like, I don't know, really. It's a if you're sitting on the man side and you have a linebacker going over the top, and you're kind of just like, whoa, it's a good pressure. Really good team football. I had guys stepping in the secondary. Wasn't perfect in the secondary. Obviously, I think we have to, still work on tackling, and that's how you're going to win a championship, is be executing on those type of things. Really good, solid day on the defensive side. But my big takeaway was for sure the defensive line and how they played.
Yeah, I feel like defensively we played pretty well. I think the plays that make Saturday look not as good are just like the big plays that they scored on. Obviously, like they caught us in man a few times. Got us with a bump wheel route on the first one. The second one we just got beat on a post. Third one it was also a post across the middle. So it's things that obviously as a as a defense, you don't want to allow those big plays like that. But it was the things that we did good that it allowed, those plays to happen and kind of forget about them. I think after those plays happened, Coop got scored on a couple of times on those, and I think he came back with a vengeance on the next drives and, kind of stopped them from moving the ball just by him playing really well. And there was a lot of that. They might have got somebody on a block on the first time, and then a defensive lineman came back and got him the next time. And I think there was a lot of that, fighting adversity and just ended up winning at the end of the day from our defense. And like Jake said, it was just really good team defense. Whenever we can get to the ball as all 11 get to the ball and tackle, we're really good. So if we continue to do that, we shouldn't have a problem.
Yeah, I think the trenches is certainly where we won that game. I know Kansas State's one of the best rush stopping defenses and one of the best rushing offenses. They had come into Iowa State game averaging over 200 yards rushing. And that's just good old-fashioned football. Iowa State ran the ball 43 times yesterday, which is just kind of a knock 'em out, drag 'em out fist fight that we kind of got ourselves into. Almost playing Kansas State's game. It's been one of those things where Mauser's been able to adapt his play calling so many different ways this year. So that's been really cool to see. That there is maybe, I know at times everyone says predictable, but certain situations like yesterday where you run the ball 43 times and you say, hey, we're going to own the line of scrimmage and beat K-State at their game. I certainly feel it is one of those ways that we were able to hold them under their season average rushing, and then obviously go out and rush for 187 yards on 43 carries is certainly a good combination to go out and win a football game.
Gosh, that fires me up, Neil, when hearing you talk about that. Just smash mouth football, running the ball all night long, and it's cold. Oh man, I'm still fired up.
Did you rush the field?
Absolutely, I did.
I knew Jake was definitely down there.
I didn't know.
If I was at the game, I would have for sure.
Oh yeah, I was running, screaming. It was awesome. It was so much fun. Singing "Sweet Caroline." It's a core memory I'm gonna have for a while. Hopefully, there's gonna be a better one next weekend.
Yes, sir.
Iowa State to the Big 12 championship. They're gonna face off against number 12 Arizona State. You know what is funny to me, and I'm curious how you guys would have answered. It's not a serious question, but everybody asked all the players that came into media, "Oh, are you gonna go watch the BYU game?" And I don't know what Bo Freeler said, but the only one that said no between Rocco, Jalen, and Darian was Darian said, no.
I don't. How much you want to bet? I doubt Darian knew that they needed that game to they needed BYU to win to get into the Big 12 championship. I bet he was just saying no. Why would I watch them?
That would be classic DP. But yeah, I mean, it's been a long time coming since we were down there in 2020. That game is a game I think about all the time, and quite frankly, I feel that game every single day when I wake up because I tore my pec. So I'm hoping for a little better memory in Jerry's world next weekend. Kind of erase that memory. But yeah, let's hopefully get the curtains figured out so we don't have any guys losing the sun in their eyes. But it's a cool stadium. It's a really cool stadium. So I think if it comes down to things, you'll play our game the way we played it all year. Just team football. Man, I can't imagine next week's podcast.
Ooh, fun one.
Yeah, I think we might have to crack some Ames loggers if that one happens.
Hey,
I feel like we have to go, an in-person one next week. If
I'll be driving back, so
we'll have to work. We'll work it. We'll work something out. So
work this week, I'm gonna try my hardest, but my eyes, my mind are gonna be set on Jerry's world. So
Yeah.
if you're listening to this and you're walking into work on a Monday, smile a little bit more, stick your chest out a little further, because the Clones got a big one on Saturday. And if there's other people in the office that wear different colors, they're probably not playing. So
Iowa State closed all week.
oh yeah, it's mandatory.
Mandatory.
It's going to be a fun week. It's a fun week, right, to be a Cyclone fan. And this is a really big weekend for fans themselves. Did you guys see? Chris Williams cried in the post game.
I watched it.
He was crying when he was doing it, doing the post game with Leah. And he's not the only one. There were so many people who said they cried in the stands, and
I'd be lying if I said I didn't shed a tear yesterday. So
did you?
I mean, you can mark me down there with them.
I almost cried watching Jalen Newell cry. He was bawling during the senior stuff. I had to block it out.
That's hard.
That senior stuff is hard.
It's
really hard.
Well, and it doesn't help that Campbell's, very comfortable and just shows his emotions the whole time, and he's crying before it even starts. So that doesn't help.
Yeah.
And it's so cold, they're turning into icebergs on his face.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. Well, big week. There's a lot on the line. I'm sure a lot of people will be asking what will make Iowa State successful this week against Arizona State. I don't know how much you guys have even looked at Arizona State, how much you've thought of that question, but
stop the run the ball.
Yeah, that's going to be a big thing. I don't know. They throw the ball around. They have a couple of good receivers, I think. But I feel like for us, it'll definitely be stop the run.
Yeah, I think
they're
their
really
offense.
running.
I think their offense is. I've obviously haven't dove into it too much, but I think they have a good offense. I think their defense is probably, I wouldn't say as good as Utah's defense, but they obviously have good defenses. They're in the Big 12 championship. You just can't, you can't just go out and score points all day.
Thanks.
So.
Yeah, same thing that I would say it's been successful on the season is taking care of the football. Make sure you win the turnover battle. Play pretty clean football as far as penalties wise, and then being able to establish line of scrimmage. If we go out and we control the line of scrimmage, we have time of possession and are able to convert on third down. I think Iowa State will certainly be a good spot.
Not a night game though. Darn it.
No, and
my theme song can't continue.
And it's
when the sun goes down.
Yeah, the Cyclones are 7-0 in night games this season.
Well, we're about to be 1-0 in 11 o'clock games. Because as far as I'm concerned, we're 0-0.
Yeah, true.
Games, so
true.
Still undefeated, technically.
I always liked 11 o'clock games.
Oh, I love them.
Just because you wake up and a routine just starts as soon as you wake up.
To go time.
For the Big 12 championship though, it's going to be kind of difficult because if you go on a stretch of a couple night games, as much as we have, you now have a routine to your night game schedule, and now that's very fast. Now you can't stay up as late on Friday nights, and then you're sitting in bed. The worst part was you're sitting in bed the night before an 11 o'clock game, and let's say you're a little tossing and turning before a night game, you might be like, yeah, whatever, that's fine. I can sleep all day tomorrow. But when it's an 11 o'clock game, you're like, oh my gosh, I have to go to bed. And then that means you just continue to stay up because you're thinking about having to go to bed. So, it's tough. And then obviously.
Good thing for us, though, is morning practices. So they're used to being up early and things like that. And then the other thing is, that's a 10 a.m. kick for Arizona State.
That's true.
That's rushed even a little bit more than probably what they're used to. That's going to be an early morning when they're waking up at essentially 5 a.m., probably their home time.
Great point.
That's a good point, yeah. Well, like I said, it's going to be a really fun week. It's a fun week for fans. Everyone should enjoy it. Saturday's going to sneak up on us. I'm very excited since I didn't get to be on the sideline in 2020. But I do this time, so.
Let's go.
But as always, thanks for listening, everyone. We will return. If there's any changes in schedule, we'll let you know. But we'll be here to talk all things Big 12 Championship next weekend. So And as always,
Go
thank
State.
you to Wyffels Hybrids, our presenting sponsor. And yeah, thanks for listening, guys.
Go State. Big week.